All righty, good Friday afternoon. You made it to the weekend. Congratulations. Welcome into the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Boom, you're laughing. You're looking more and more like Charles Manson every day with the hair, and it's kind of what's going on with you, Boom? What is
2 straight days of forgetting to set my alarm.
Boom, you got to put your mic on. Yeah, there you go.
Hello. Wait.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yep. Professional organization that we got going here. It's a good broadcast. Boom, how you doing now? Good? You still looking, still searching for answers?
I think I am.
You're good. Now you're good. Yeah, now we can, I could hear you there. Yeah.
I've been good all along. I was just too low.
Okay. So I'm not buying the alarm thing, Boom. I think this is kind of the look you're going for, like kind of, long hair.
Long hair, don't care.
Hippie people need not apply. Signs everywhere. So I think this is your look now. You do resemble. I like some backup on this, some feedback. I think you kind of resemble Charles Manson a little bit.
Yeah, it is a mess today. So normally when I come into the show, I haven't done anything different other than not shower this morning, and so it just when I shower, it's like I can comb it, I can make it much neater.
Yeah,
but now it's just out of control. This is massive bedhead.
See, this is very this is easy maintenance right here on the top of my dome. Yeah.
In some ways, I envy you.
No, you don't. Trust me. You don't. All right. We've got a big show coming your way, obviously, because it's Friday, or as Bohm would say, it is Friday. Okay, coming up in about a half hour. We talked a little bit about Ohio State, Notre Dame, mainly the very, very entertaining post-game comments from head coach Ryan Day. Compared it to Howard Dean from years ago in the lead-up, the build-up to him wanting to get to the White House. But as far as actually talking about the Notre Dame game and what Ohio State did well and what they didn't do well, and I thought all together, like just 4 quarters, Notre Dame outplayed them. But when it mattered most, they got it done. And at the end of the day, find a way to get a W. And they did. And Kyle McCord took a huge step forward in his career. But Bill Landis from Rivals.com and Dotting the I's and the podcast will join us at the bottom of the hour. Buckeyes are off this week. They will take on Maryland next week. Then they've got, Maryland, Purdue. Then they've got Penn State. Obviously, Michigan to end the year. I don't know. I think right now in college football, it's really, really, really strange. Like, we went into this season and it seemed like everybody, Georgia's going to three-peat. This is a Georgia 3. And now you're not even sure that Georgia, they're good. They're great. But it feels like there's probably a dozen teams, and you never say this in college football. We never say this in college football. Now, there's still a lot of the season left to play out, but I feel like there's about 10 to 12 teams where you say, yeah, I guess I could see that happening. And then teams that nobody's talking about, say, Washington. Washington's one of the best teams in the country. I would guess the majority of folks in this area of the country, this neck of the woods, probably hasn't watched Washington play. Very, very good. So it's just, like I said, it's very odd. College football, college sports in general, very, very strange right now because of everything going on and the conference realignment and all of that stuff. But, yeah, just very, very odd. Georgia is number one. They will take on Auburn this weekend. That's not one of our 2 college games, but we will get to pick 6, courtesy of our friends at Tipico, coming up around 1 o'clock. We go 2 from the college slate, 4 from the NFL slate, and because I'm not going to be on Sunday, we're going to go ahead and include the Ravens and the Browns in our pick 6. Yeah, you can't shy away. You can't run and hide, Bohm. You can't run and hide.
I'm cornered.
You're cornered. I was been thinking about and talking about, quite frankly, this game all week. And one of the areas and it just hit me yesterday because somebody asked Jim Schwartz a question about turnovers because the Browns really haven't forced, now, do I still think they're an elite defense? Yes. I mean, I don't. The turnovers usually are a byproduct. Like it's going to happen at some point, and it may happen this week. Hopefully, it will happen this week, and I've got an idea as to why it could very well happen this week here in a moment. But this is not one of those, and we've had this in the past, where your team is not aggressive enough or your team is they're not putting themselves in good positions to create and make turnovers. You've had opportunities and you haven't been able to capitalize. It's not that. I think it's sometimes turnovers can be very fluky. Sometimes the game of football is very fluky. And I think this is one of those areas where, don't let – right now, as Bohm would say, you're picking nits, trying to find something to, look at the Browns and go, I'm not real happy about that. I mean, the offense is a work in progress. Defensively, though, you don't have many concerns. They just held an NFL team. I don't care how many undrafted free agents were on that line. I don't care if Ryan Tannehill's 68. I don't care if Derrick the Browns held a National Football League team to 94 yards of total offense. 94. So there's not a lot that you can pick at. But I'm going to tell you right now, I remember watching the Cincinnati-Baltimore game a couple of weeks ago. And Baltimore won that game. Lamar Jackson, for all intents and purposes, had a very good game. He was doing the Lamar Jackson things that we hope that we can contain, the Browns can contain on Sunday, and that is escaping the pocket, buying more time, sometimes running for a first down, sometimes extending a play and finding somebody downfield, finding, Zay Flowers, the rookie, Mark Andrews, his trusted tight end. He was doing all of those things. Last week against the Colts had, I believe, 14 carries, over 100 yards. But there was something, and it's been consistent with him this year. And it happened last week against Indianapolis in the loss. Lamar Jackson gets careless with the football. Now, a lot of times when we look at quarterbacks, you say, well, he threw a pick. It's not necessarily that. The Cincinnati game, for about 3.5 quarters, he was carrying the football like a loaf of bread. Like, just kind of, doing – and when quarterbacks are that athletic and they're running the football and they're, avoiding things and they've got to adjust on the fly, a lot of times they will do that. This, to me, I'm going to call my shot. This, to me, feels like a game that the Browns are not only going to frustrate, and I'm not saying they shut Lamar Jackson down, but I think they frustrate Lamar Jackson. And I think you find him and he finds himself darting out of the pocket, trying to make things happen, but that football's out here. and you leave a football out here. You know, they talk about like dogs and lions, and you leave like raw meat. They're going to come and get it. Well, Myles Garrett is that dog. Myles Garrett is, and friends, by the way. That's what they do. And this is setting up, I think, for one of those games that, yeah, Lamar Jackson's going to make a few plays, but I think the Browns defense they're going to rattle his cage a bit. They're going to be aggressive, and then there are going to be times where he's thinking they're going to be aggressive, and they're not aggressive. He's a very smart quarterback, too. He doesn't get enough credit for that. Kind of like when they talk about throwing the football downfield. He's not the greatest, but he's certainly not the worst, as some make him out to be. But he's a very, smart quarterback. One thing about Lamar Jackson, and, mentioned a lot about this and talked a lot about this earlier in the week, he's a guy, it's actually very hard, very difficult to rattle his cage. It's very difficult to not see him in that cool, calm, collected, because that's what quarterbacks who win MVPs and quarterbacks of his ilk, that's how they're made up. Like they don't get rattled. One of the things, as much as I defended Baker Mayfield, and I think Baker Mayfield was a decent quarterback, a good quarterback, whatever. The one thing about Baker Mayfield that drove me nuts is that he could never ratchet it down. I don't even care about off the field. I mean, on big game, big drive, he'd get a big first down. You'd see him want to headbutt an offensive lineman. He'd get back to the huddle, and then there was no, kind of, okay, let's gear down a little bit here. And as a quarterback, you've got to have that quality. And Lamar Jackson has that quality in droves and has it, every minute of every game. But I think the Browns have a legitimate opportunity right now, and coming up this Sunday, to be able to get just enough pressure on him. And yes, he's going to be escaping the pocket, but when he's escaping the pocket, he better be very cognizant of putting the football away. Because if he starts, and he does have this, this habit where he will, the ball's out here. You do that against the Browns. You do that against Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and company, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They're gonna come after you. They're gonna come after that football, and they're gonna create turnovers. I think it happens on Sunday. I think it absolutely. I have a feeling, and like I said, it kind of materialized for me yesterday when I was listening to the Jim Schwartz was talking to the media. I think it was yesterday. And somebody asked, I don't know who it was, somebody asked Schwartz about the lack of turnovers, and they weren't, trying to put it in a bad light, but he kind of, I don't know, how do I want to say it? He wasn't rude about it, but he was kind of like, and I get it. You understand. He's like, well, my God, what else do you want us to do? We'll get the turnovers. Am I concerned about the turnovers? No. It's going to happen. And like I said, sometimes turnovers, they are very fluky, and sometimes they're just a byproduct of, when you're playing really, really well, as they are elite, they're going to come. And I think it's going to start this Sunday. I really, really believe that this is a game where Lamar Jackson, he's going to make a few plays, but he might lose 2 fumbles. He might lose more than 2 fumbles. He might throw an ill-advised pass that gets picked off. I think this is the turnover game for the Cleveland Browns and Jim Schwartz in that defense. I think this is the game, and again, it's not like Lamar Jackson's going to be wowed or anything, but this is not the same old Browns defense he's used to facing. So he's going to be under pressure. He's usually good under pressure, but in doing so and trying to escape and do all the Houdini things that he does, he's going to have to be very, very aware of where that football is. And is he putting that football away? And if he's not doing that, I think the Browns are going to turn them over. And so I have a feeling that drought, if you want to call it one, it's only 3 games. I think the turnover drought ends in a big way on Sunday. 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. You can also find us streaming live as we do each and every day on Twitter. We do this show, the Chico Borman Show, noon to 2, at Chico Show CLE. You can also find us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in the Chico Borman Show, and if you are not subscribed already, subscribing already, go ahead and hit that button, and you will be all set to go. We also are available wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple, whether it be Spotify, also now available on iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio app. Type in Big Play, and you will find us there, and you can stream the station there with all of our great many shows. All right, so that is the Browns, and that is the Ravens coming up on Sunday. Want to get your thoughts on that. Boom, I'm curious as you ponder whatever you're pondering. Do you like the idea that this could be the Cincinnati game, even though he played well, and I've been saying that, Lamar Jackson played very well in the game against Cincinnati, in the game against the Bengals, but he didn't really start putting the ball away, like tucking it and carrying it strong until like the fourth quarter. And my guess is John Harbaugh, among others, probably said, yo, dude, you gotta be aware and you got to put that football away. I think bad habits emerge when you don't really have time to react and you kind of revert back to what's natural. And part of him making big plays is, just escaping the pocket and taking off. In doing so, though, I think he gets careless with the football, and I think it's going to happen Sunday.
Yeah, I do agree that, in those spur of the moment moments, you really have to, you kind of revert back to old habits. But at the same time, I have to imagine that they really put an emphasis on taking better care of the football, because that feels like the kryptonite of Lamar Jackson's mobility right now.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole point is, okay, yeah, he's going to try to take care of the football, but again, if you get him in situations, which I think the Browns will, Shook used the term caging him, where, you're kind of, you're pinching him in there. He stays in the pocket per se. He's going, like I said, the combination of Lamar Jackson's escapability along with the Browns' ability and the Browns' propensity, shall we say, to be very aggressive on defense, which we love, which, Jim Schwartz, this is what he's all about. This is why you brought him in. So when you bring in a guy like that and you are as aggressive as they are, and he is, there are going to be some big plays. You haven't really faced an offense. Okay, Burrow in week 1 against Cincinnati, but he wasn't the same Joe Burrow. This is the offense, I think, where you can get burned a few times, but I don't want them to change, and I don't think they will change. But I do think in trying to make big plays and trying to take advantage of certain situations, I really do believe that Lamar Jackson is going to get careless, and I think the Browns are able to pounce all over that.
All right, Chico, over under 1.5 turnovers on Sunday for the Browns defense.
I'm going to go over on that. I think he fumbles at least twice, loses at least one of those, and I do think he throws a pick. I don't think it's necessarily through the air that he has a horrible game, but I do think, and look at it, I mean, he's one of the leaders in fumbles this year, and he's had that issue throughout his career. And yes, some of that does come with his style of play, but I just feel like this is the Browns team. We see it with Miles every week, right? Whether it's somebody who's escaping the pocket or just there's a nose for the football, and then there's Myles Garrett's nose for the football. Like the strip sack, he's almost mastered that. He has. Where in addition to, bringing the guy down and one motion, getting set to bring him down, he's also stripping him of the football. And I think that that's what you're going to see, and the Browns will emphasize should emphasize against Lamar on Sunday. By the way, coming up at, I mentioned 12:30 will be Bill Landis talking Buckeyes. He had to move that to 12:45. So we will move Bill Landis. Bill Landis will join us at 12:45, recapping Ohio State's big win over Notre Dame. So what that means is more time for you to weigh in and give me your thoughts on the Browns and the Ravens coming up on Sunday afternoon at Cleveland Brown Stadium. And then there's a bye week. See, this is why I say that, because this has been as roller coaster a start as you're going to get. And I know it sounds like we say it every year, and sometimes we do say it every year, but this is one of those where, I mean, it was absolute euphoria after you knocked off the Bengals in week 1. And then week 2, as we know, it wasn't just losing to Pittsburgh, it was losing to Pittsburgh and losing Nick Chubb for the season. But then last week, okay, how are they going to bounce back? Well, they're going to bounce back in a huge way. And Derrick Henry, who's still one of the best running backs in the game, and as physical as they come, well, one of the big check marks that needed, or one of the boxes that needed to be checked for Andrew Berry and this team in the offseason was not getting gouged at the line of scrimmage and not getting gouged in the running game. And I know it's only one game. I know that the Titans quickly became one-dimensional. I don't care, though, because they absolutely shut down Derrick Henry, the running game, the entire offense on Sunday. So that's an area where they really they had a comprehensive to-do list, and they have checked every box so far, and that was a good indication. Now, Baltimore also is going to be a physical team. Even though they don't have the same personnel, this is where culture does come into play. Like with the Browns, let's face it, culture has been an enigma. With Baltimore, it's legitimate. But that doesn't mean they're the better team. I don't think they are the better team. They have the better quarterback right now. But I think that quarterback, and I think that's the other, we haven't really discussed on the offensive side of the ball, which we'll get to in a bit. I think defensively, and this is why I was so excited yesterday on the show, it's an entirely different mindset. When you have a defense as great, as elite, yes, elite as the Browns are, I know, only 3 games, but our eyeballs are not deceiving us. They've got talent at every level, and they're deep. They've got playmakers. They've got the guy that is the chef in there in the kitchen that knows exactly what ingredients and when to turn up the heat and when to turn down the heat and when to – I mean, they are clicking at a very, very high level. So, you know, it's been such a roller coaster ride, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then you've got this game, and it's big for the obvious reason. It's Baltimore Ravens. It's big. It's a division. It's, you know, whatever. Then you have that bye week, though. And, like, this has been a season where so far, and it will probably continue, where you're saying to yourself, okay, we've got this week 5 bye, the earliest you can have a bye. I don't necessarily like it, but if they're going to have the bye that early, you want to see them go into that bye feeling great about themselves. You want to see them go into that bye week because we know how this town is. If the Browns lose against the Ravens, it's going to be 2 weeks of hell. If they lose and they don't look good against the Ravens, it's going to be a long, long 2 weeks. Now, in the grand scheme of things, 2-2, hey, you know what? That's not too shabby, right? 2-2 is not too shabby. What's the matter, Boom? Now what are you laughing about?
The warden is watching over us.
Who's the warden?
Warden McAllister.
What's that guy? What's that mean?
No, it's just he's currently viewing my desktop.
How can you see that? How are you able to?
I have a little notification here on the bottom of the screen that it's currently.
So you think it's funny? Like
no,
what?
it's just like I was trying to figure out, like, what's going on? Like, what's he looking into right now?
Did he have?
I can merely speculate.
Does he have your permission? Well,
hey, I mean, he's the warden. He doesn't need my permission. It's above my pay grade.
I'm actually just. Well, I'm not going to forget it. All right, 216-626-7901. Also on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, and of course YouTube. You can find us, and now we have our own radio station, iHeartRadio. Type in Big Play, and you can stream us live each and every day. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, does not matter. Yeah, this is one of those games, and I think every city's probably like this, but more so here in Cleveland, because I mean, we're either super high or we're super low. Either we're Cincinnati Bengals high, Tennessee Titans high, or we are absolutely down in the dumps like we were against the Steelers. And I know it was more than just the Steelers' loss, and it was Nick Chubb. But it's going to be I'll be selfish. Just for my purposes, I want to see them win because I don't want to deal with 2 weeks of, woe is me. But if they lose to Baltimore and then we've got a week to think about it before they come back. And then, by the way, coming out of the break, they've got San Francisco. Like, now is where you start to put the big boy pants on. Not that you haven't already, because you've had 2 division games. You've split there, but you've got an opportunity to be 3-1, 2-1 in your division, going into your bye week prior to taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who, depending on who you talk to, might be the best team in the National Football League. So with 2 weeks to stew, please get that W.
I also think this victory would be really important for Kevin Stefanski because it feels like throughout the span of his tenure with the Cleveland Browns, he hasn't been able to string together any sort of consistent winning streak. He'll come out some weeks and it feels like he's calling a perfect game for almost 60 minutes. I've never seen it for 60 full minutes. There's always something where he tends to get a little cute and whatnot. But he's never strung it together for multiple games in a row. I think that that's a knock that he can really calm down here on Sunday, especially against a tough opponent like the Ravens, who are probably the toughest opponent you've faced yet this season.
Yeah, and it should be Cincinnati, but again, Cincinnati.
Burrow wasn't Burrow.
Yeah, Burrow wasn't Burrow. Cincinnati wasn't Cincinnati. I mean, they're starting maybe to come out of it, but they, I think Cincinnati, it's funny. We were talking about, and with the Browns, it's kind of that fake bravado over the years. I wonder if Cincinnati deep down, even though, look, they have every reason to be confident with what they've done the last few seasons and, getting to the AFC Championship and having that guy at quarterback. But I wonder deep down, in places you don't like to talk about, if they are kind of, they're pretty nervous right now because they're only going to be as great, and they can be great, as Joe Burrow allows them. Now, okay, he didn't re-injure that calf last week, but I said to Nick on Tuesday on the bald breakdown that he's still not able to plant that right leg. I mean, dig in and fire. And every quarterback has to be able to do that. Some can do it better than others. That's the whole, he has a better arm. He's super accurate. That. But part of being super accurate is you also, when you've got to fit it in that tight window, you're able to do that. And I think right now with Joey Burrow, he can't just plant that right leg behind him with authority and feel confident. And if he can't feel confident, then the fan base can't feel confident.
Yeah, the Bengals have a little bit of a Baker Mayfield situation on their hands, right? Like, if you'll recall, when Baker separated his non-throwing shoulder week 2 of the NFL season, and then he was just off his game for the remainder of the year. And in hindsight, it feels like he probably should have shut it down, but also that brings up questions from a leadership standpoint. And so I think it really puts the Bengals in this sort of pickle where, like, Burrow is good enough to play, but he's not 100% Joey B. And so if you shut it down, does that look bad from a leadership perspective? But at the same time...
Leadership? Whose leadership? Joe's or Zach Taylor's?
Joe's. Obviously, that leadership from a quarterback position is very important.
Yeah, I don't think that's in question with them.
It could be a bad look, though. If you shut it down, you're showing a lack of toughness. That's how some players might perceive it.
You had Jamar Chase say, I wanted him to sit out 5 games. They don't question, much like it was stupid for them to question Baker Mayfield's toughness, which they didn't. They couldn't because he was going out. Now, that was totally different. Like, he literally had one arm. And he literally, you talk about coverages. You talk about, well, you got T.J. Watt here coming off the edge. Well, I think we'll just put one guy on him. Like, what are you doing? But I think in terms of Joe Burrow, and at that point with Baker, like, whether I think he had some guys in the locker room, the Wyatt Tellers of the world that were behind him. He had some that it was never going to happen. Most importantly, he didn't have Kevin Stefanski in the front office. That's not the question in Cincinnati. Like, they know that Joe Burrow he's going to go out and give it his very best, and he's going to, whatever. I don't think anybody's questioning, will he shut it down? No. And that's what I said to James Rapine last week. This is going to be one of those tough decisions. This is why when you said leadership, I thought you meant Zach Taylor. Because where I think it would have to come from is Zach Taylor kind of stepping in and going, you know what, Joe, I know you want to play. I appreciate you want to play. We want you to play. But I have to think about, as head coach, I have to think about the entire season. And, the Bengals, again, nobody's out of it right now. They're only 3 games into the season. But no, I would disagree there, Bohm. I don't think anybody's if Joe Burrow is unable to go, I don't think anybody's questioning his leadership or anything. But
I do think that I can't remember which player it was, but I saw some player being interviewed talking about how it could be perceived by teammates when you're like kind of calling it, throwing the towel. It could be perceived as a lack of toughness.
Well, okay, give me the context of this. Burrow's situation isn't. Nobody's ever questioned his toughness.
No, I'm not questioning his toughness. I'm saying that it could be perceived by teammates.
No, it won't be.
If you pull the plug this early in the season, and obviously,
what do you mean pulling the plug? Like, I didn't say. Like, if he sits out a game, you're telling me that
we don't know that it's 1 week that he would need to miss. It could be an extended period. Who knows? Those calf injuries linger.
I don't even know why you brought up this hypothetical. Like, I don't. It makes no sense to me.
Because Joe Burrow is not Joe Burrow right now. He's not playing.
Yeah, but they're not questioning his leadership or his toughness.
But you're still not getting the best Joe Burrow. It might be worth the time to let him get a little bit of rest and heal.
Right, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase said that.
Yeah,
he said
but
that
he's
to
not
start
going
the
to
year.
do it.
But you're saying that, oh well, if he's off, then they're going to question. They're not going to. They don't question him on that.
So then why isn't he doing it?
Because he doesn't want to.
Yeah,
because
but
he's their best chance to win. He just got a huge contract. I mean, why is he?
Is 75% Joe Burrow their best chance to win?
How do you know he's 75%?
Chico, he doesn't look 100%.
No, he's not 100%. But again, what you're bringing up, the hypothetical you're bringing up, and which is like, I don't even know what you're saying, to be honest with you. It's like, well,
I'm a very nonsensical person.
Chico,
what can I say?
If he sits out, it might be perceived as lack of toughness. Well, no. I mean, I'm telling you, there is nobody in that locker room that questions. If they did question him and his toughness going in, then yeah, it would. But nobody's questioning that. They all know and respect him as a leader. That's why I say, if he's going to end up sitting, it's going to be because Zach Taylor steps in and says, dude, I don't know when their bye week is. Cincinnati's bye week, I think it's like week 10. Now, see, there's a team that might want to have a switch with the Browns. I wonder if you can trade bye weeks in the NFL. Can you do that in Madden? Can you do that in video games? Can you do that in the NFL? Bohm's
That would be a new feature.
looks like he's trying to look it up. Stand by, Chico. I'll look that up. I don't think you can do that. No, Bohm. I don't think anybody in Cincinnati is questioning Joe Burrow's leadership or toughness or anything like that. If he were to,
Well, of course not, because he hasn't pulled the plug yet.
Why do you say pull the plug? Pull the plug means that he's done for the year.
I mean, I think that's what it might feel like to some people, especially fans.
If he sits out a game,
who knows that it's just 1 week that he would need to miss?
All right, Bohm, you're lost, man. You're absolutely lost.
Okay.
It's one of those days again. I can already tell where you're off in La La Land. That's okay.
You know me.
Is it C.J. Stroud? Is it that? Are you? What is it?
Truly, severe depression.
Did you write any songs last night?
Yeah, actually.
I
did, yeah.
About that girl that you never met?
No. I'm trying to write things other than about her.
Uplifting. Write a song about
overcoming adversity.
Write a song about big play.
Just write the big play theme song.
Have it be like a parody song on big play. Like, and you can and will rip me, but use everybody. Like,
channel my inner Weird Al.
Yes, like I said. Now yesterday you came in and the hair was voluminous. You kind of look like Homie the Clown, except
Homie the Clown?
You ever heard of Homie the Clown?
No.
Living Color? You never heard of
I know Living Color.
Homie don't play that?
Oh.
That's Homie the Clown.
I've heard that expression before. I didn't realize it originated with a clown.
Not everything, Bohm, is Family Guy and Art Petrano or whatever the hell it is that you pay attention to.
Artie Moreno.
Artie Moreno is the real Artie Moreno. You would always, for the longest time during the Shohei Ohtani situation, I would constantly, Ohtani's doing this and now will he get traded? And you would just constantly be laughing. Like, Boom, what is so funny about Shohei Ohtani? And you're like, Chico, every time you say Artie Moreno, all I think is Artie Petrano, the comedian on Family Guy. Thank you, Boom. Thank you.
Just giving my 2 cents. What can I say?
Yeah,
that's about as much as it's worth.
And we all greatly appreciate 2 cents.
I'm sure.
I do. But you're way off on Joe Burrow. Anyway, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to be just about set to talk to Bill Landis. Buckeyes are off this week, but huge game in South Bend. They had some questions answered. They have some questions still lingering. And you have a coach that, like I said, channeled his inner Howard Dean after the game. It was all there in South Bend. We'll talk about it with Bill Landis from Rivals and Dotting the I's and the podcast. That'll come your way in about 5 minutes. It's Chico Borman Show. More to come, including Pick 6. 2 from the college slate, 4 from the NFL slate. Let me see if it includes the Bengals. No, it does not. So, boom. No.
We could always add a Pick 7.
No lead. We could. We can have bonus. If there's really, I contemplated it last week for Pick 6, brought to you by Tipico. I contemplated it last week because last week's slate was so full in college football. It's not anywhere near as full this week, but it was very, very full last week. But we're happy with Notre Dame, Duke, and LSU and Ole Miss. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more Chico Borman Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show on this Friday. Good to have you with us here as we count down, get ready for the Browns and the Ravens coming up on Sunday afternoon. And, well, we got a little, as we broadcast live, our studios, as everyone knows, here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Looks like we have a gathering out in the hallway.
A lot of action, Chico.
And
there's a lot of action.
There's chatter even here. I don't know if this is like one of the Atlantic City getaway crew. It's kind of, sometimes like you have, some of the retired folks that get together for, I don't know, bingo or card night, or so these are more the a little wealthier crowd. So they could be just hopping on one of the planes and heading to Atlantic City, but they are out there chattering about Deshaun Watson. There's concern that will he be able to go on Sunday with the shoulder, and you were apparently hamming it up with the with the crowd out there. Good job.
Yeah, I was being pestered for Deshaun updates, but I'm not exactly an insider, Chico.
Boom, we're going to get into an insider, talk to an insider here in just a second with Bill Landis as the Buckeyes knocked off Notre Dame last week. I still want to do the experiment where you just very nonchalantly act like you're part of that crew and try to board their plane for Atlantic City and see if anyone notices. Because I don't think you get boarding passes. I think you just
channel my inner Billy Manziel.
So if you, well, not really. I was thinking more Cosmo Kramer, like with Grant Nealon, when he just shows up with the briefcase. They're like, "What's in the briefcase?" Crackers. He looked like he belonged. So if you look like you belong, maybe they'll let you on.
Probably would need a haircut to pull that off, though.
You kind of look like Charles Manson today, I'll be honest with you. It's not good. But, hey, at least you have hair. I don't. Bill Landis, plenty of hair, I'm sure, covering the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm with you, buddy. We have a show on here, myself and Nick Shook. It's called the Bold Bald Breakdown. So we actually celebrate the follically challenged. Welcome to the club, Mr. Landis. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, here you go. This is what we're dealing with here. So I'm with you. Happy to be part of the club.
Well, it's and we're happy to have you as part of the club, and certainly happy to have you each and every week talking Buckeyes. So they are off this week, and I was watching. I don't know if it was a fundraiser that was going on this week, and Ryan Day. They were, everybody was hamming it up. They're making, making some money, good money for charity, and probably NIL and all that good stuff. Ryan Day. Let's start with the post game. The post game comments. It was. I said it sounded like he was about to go Howard Dean. Like, remember Howard Dean years ago when he went on the campaign trail and he's like, ah! And I thought like that was where Dave was going with it. But from your perspective, Joel Klatt came out last week and was saying that Ohio State they're not on the same level as other programs, even the top programs, Georgia, Alabama, whatever, in terms of how they are critiqued, criticized, however you want to term it. Do you think that was Ryan Day in the moment, obviously coming off an emotional win, knowing what Lou Holtz had said, but knowing what a lot of people have said since his tenure and certainly over the last 2 years? Do you think that was it? That was him boiling over after the game?
Yeah, I think so. Lou Holtz, I think, sort of became the stand-in for probably a lot of criticism that Ryan Day has heard over the last few years. And, I think some of it is fair. Some of it is probably overblown or just, not quite accurate. But you could tell it's been simmering there for a while. Even before the game, he did an interview Ryan Day did with NBC where he didn't say it directly, but you knew it was on his mind. He said something to the effect of, I've had to hear people say a lot of things about this team over the last 48 hours coming into the game. And then clearly it was affecting him during the game, and then he kind of let it all out after the game. So he hears it. He's not immune to that. I think there are fair criticisms to kind of levy against Ohio State when it comes to some of that stuff, but to say also that that they don't win tough games also is just not accurate. They beat Penn State last year at Penn State. That was a pretty tough win. I thought they beat Notre Dame last year. I thought that was a tough win. It's mostly a Michigan conversation. And even last year's Michigan game, I don't think was the same thing as what happened in the second half up in Ann Arbor in 2021. So it's sort of lazy analysis. So if that's the point that Ryan Day was angry about, then I certainly understand that, because I think some of those things aren't true about his team. But yeah, he was clearly tired of hearing it, whether it was from Lou Holtz or anybody else.
So Ohio State comes away victorious. That's the most important number and takeaway after the game. But is it fair to say that physicality, really the things that we've been talking about, if there have been criticism, the criticisms have been centered around that? Was that an issue still for much of the game in South Bend, in your estimation?
I think maybe on the offensive side, yes. Some of those short yardage situations obviously did not go very well for Ohio State. I think that's a play calling issue as much as it is a personnel / physicality issue for Ohio State. They've just not been able to figure out short yardage, and I think part of it is this ongoing conversation about Ohio State's toughness and like its ability to get a yard when they need to get a yard. I think does influence the way that Ryan Day has called games, and particularly in those moments. And I don't think they gave it their best effort when they got stopped on the goal line twice against Notre Dame, and then obviously had the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 on the second to last drive that they didn't convert either. Clearly, it's a team that is capable of running the football, and it's a team that is capable of exerting some, semblance of physicality on offense. And on defense, I actually think they are pretty physical. I know that Notre Dame was running the ball a little bit toward the end of that game. That felt less to me like Ohio State getting pushed around and more like perhaps a bit of fatigue. And also, I just think, it wasn't particularly a strong game for Ohio State's linebackers. So I didn't come away really alarmed on as far as the defense goes and playing physical teams that want to line up and run the ball. But the offense has to get better at that. But we all knew that coming into the game. It just wasn't their strong point. I think they probably leaned into trying to prove a point a little too much against Notre Dame, but they still won the game anyway.
Yeah, I think it's well, I don't think I know because everybody screams about it. You're running a jet sweep with Emeka Egbuka when you need to get a yard, and it's almost like, okay, if there are any questions about are they physical enough and can they take that next step, it's like that's almost, and I'm just saying the interpretation from a lot of fans, that's Ryan Day saying, you know what, I don't believe it either. So, and I guess that's where I had somebody tweet at me and wanted me to ask you this question. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Ryan Day's the play caller. I don't think that's going to change, and I think he's a great play caller. I think he's great with quarterbacks, no question. There was that talk before the season about how, and I think Ryan was asked directly about Brian Hartline. He said, yeah, hey, we're going to slowly work him in, and then maybe at some point he's going to have much more of an emphasis or much more of a call on the offense. So this guy wanted to know, do you think that is something that is going to come to fruition as the season rolls along, that Brian Hartline has more say? Do we know he doesn't have a lot of say? I have no idea what's going on with that.
I mean, it certainly seems like Ryan Day is the one calling the plays. I think Brian Hartline has a bigger voice in the organization of things during the week. He has a play sheet in his hands on the sideline, and what Ryan Day tells us, like, he takes input from Brian Hartline and all the other offensive coaches when deciding what to call, but it's still Ryan Day calling plays. And I don't think we're in a situation where that'll transition over the course of the season. Maybe over time, Brian Hartline gets a little more, or if there's a game where there's a blowout, maybe Ryan Day will hand the game over to Brian Hartline and let him do some of that. But I don't think we're in a situation where suddenly at some point in the season, Ryan Day is no longer calling plays and Brian Hartline is the full-time play caller. I think we could transition to that over time. Like maybe that'll happen next year. But it was pretty clear to me, and I think everyone else covering Ohio State, listening to Ryan Day talk throughout the spring, that the closer we got to it, the less likely it was he was going to give it up. He didn't seem like he was ready to do that. And I think there were complicating factors too. Number one among them, the fact that they were going to have a new starting quarterback this year who just was inexperienced. And I think Ryan Day wanted to be more hands-on with that than maybe he initially realized when he started talking about this stuff way early in the last offseason. So I do think Brian Hartline is more involved and has a bigger voice. I don't think we'll get to a point at any point this year where he's the only person calling plays for Ohio State's offense.
He's Bill Landis covering Ohio State for Rivals and dotting the I's. You can also catch him on the podcast, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. Follow him on Twitter at Bill Landis25. So you mentioned Kyle McCord, and really at the end of the night, with everything else going on, and yes, Ryan Day, his comments took center stage, but really it was about, I thought, Kyle McCord in the biggest moment with the lights the brightest really came up big. I really enjoyed your look into those big throws on the winning drive, and then hearing Kyle talk about him. And I thought it was interesting. Like, you would just assume the long, was it 4th and 19, that's going to be the one that, he talks about and says is his favorite play, but he actually brings up the 4th and 7, I should say, the 3rd down, excuse me, but the 4th and 7 to Julian Fleming, where I think, as you detailed, and he said he had to put it exactly where he put it, or that ball is probably picked and that game is probably over. What'd you think of his throws on that drive?
Yeah, he was really good. That 4th down play, it was 4th and 7, and I want to say Julian Fleming caught the ball probably 2.5, 3 yards short of the stick. So like you're throwing short of the marker on 4th and 7, which is not, I guess, ideal. But Kyle McCord put it in a place where Julian could catch it and keep running with it, and they got the first down by half a yard. And yeah, he was pleased with the ball placement on that kind of play. It was just like a slant, and they kind of ran a pick play. It wasn't maybe the most difficult throw, but accuracy was of the utmost importance on that play, because to your point, if it was anywhere else other than where it was, I think he gets tackled or gets tipped or whatever. The game's over. Kyle was really good in sort of the most important moments. Like, he was far from perfect on the final drive. I think his final stat line on the 2-minute drill was like 5 of 13. So they miraculously ended up running like 15 plays in a minute and 26 seconds with only one timeout, which is kind of crazy. But Kyle was 5 of 13. He almost threw one pick. He threw another that hit a defender. He had the intentional grounding that may or may not have been the correct call. So it wasn't like he was acing every single throw, but when it was 3rd down and they had to get the gain, or if it was 4th down and if they don't convert, the game's over, he was almost perfect. He was 10 of 13 for the entire game on 3rd down, which I think is probably the biggest thing that I take away from that game. It's not, if you want to pick out some 1st down throws and critique them, you're certainly, more than you're allowed to do that, but it's your own power to do that. But I think quarterbacks are judged on what they do on 3rd down, what they do in a 2-minute drill, what they do when you need them to go win a game for you, or help your offense win a game for you. And I think Kyle McCord passed every test that was thrown at him against Notre Dame. And I think it's something that will help him continue to build confidence and probably take his play to another level now that he has it under his belt. Because that's not even something, like, for as good as CJ Stroud was, he didn't really have to do that. He was put in that position to do it against Oregon in his second start of his career and threw a pick that ended the game. Like, it's just, they're not opportunities that come up a whole lot when you're Ohio State's quarterback. So to show an ability to do it this early in his career, I thought was really promising.
Buckeyes are off this week, and that's probably a good thing on the injury front when it certainly involves your best player and maybe the best player in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr. What's the status of that ankle that you know of?
Ryan Day said it's just an ankle sprain, so I'm not too worried about it. We saw him before practice on Wednesday. He had it taped up, but he was walking around mostly normal. We didn't see him run, but he was out there, catching some passes off the jugs machine a couple hours before practice, and didn't seem bothered. I would guess that if he did practice this week, he took it kind of easy as he rests that ankle and kind of gets it back up to playing shape. But the fact that we saw him on Wednesday, the fact that he stayed in the game, and while he did look a little worse off, I still think kind of looked like himself, leads me to believe that it's not that serious.
Let me ask you about the defense, because I feel like, wow, I mean, they looked very good in that game, and I know Notre Dame at times ran the ball at will, and they seem to get stronger running the ball, and that's somewhat of an issue when we talk about the physicality, but still a defense that for the most part, really, really played their butts off there for much of that game. and two guys that are playing very well, and we've talked about him before, really since the start of the year, Denzel Burke, but maybe the guy with, you've got JT Tuimoloau, you've got Jack Sawyer, you've got Mike Hall, but Tyleik Williams has been very, very disruptive. What has Jim Knowles said about his defense through these games, 4 games?
Yeah, I think Jim Knowles is pleased. It's funny, like last year, I thought when they were playing well early in the year, he was pretty effusive in his praise of the defense, and then obviously when they got up against better teams, it wasn't quite the same thing. So this year, now that they are playing well again, I think he's trying not to be so effusive. So he's always offering qualifying statements like, "Yeah, we're good, but this, and this." So I'm sure he's still thinking along those same lines, but I don't know. I don't really care how you do it. The name of the game is keeping the other team out of the end zone, and they've allowed 5 touchdowns in 16 quarters. And Notre Dame is a good offense, and Western Kentucky is a potentially explosive offense. Maybe the other 2 opponents don't scare you that much, but that's still good, I think, almost regardless of who you play. And they're doing a pretty good job of that. I think they can be a little better on third down. They give up a lot of like third and shorts, which are sort of like, it's kind of like paper cuts down going your way down the field, like 3rd and 3. It's like, can we just get off the field here? And maybe they need to be a little better about that, but they're not letting teams score. They're eliminating explosive plays at a much better rate than they did last year. And I think those are the 2 most important things for Jim Knowles. So I'd imagine he's pretty pleased with where things stand. They'll get a different kind of test when they come back and play Maryland next week, right? Maryland can throw the ball around a little bit, probably more explosive on the outside than any of Ohio State's previous 4 opponents. So we'll see what that looks like for them. But they're playing well, and you're right that to single out Tyleik Williams, I think it's either him or Denzel have been their 2 best defensive players, and Denzel didn't get thrown at really against Notre Dame. I think he had 1 ball thrown his way the entirety of the game. Tyleik was kind of in the thick of it for the entire thing, and I thought he played maybe his best game of his 3-year career so far.
Final thing for you, we'll let you go with this, and we appreciate your time as always. Bill Landis with Rivals and Dotting the I's joining us here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. You mentioned this in your thoughts after the game, and look, I think it's a good problem to have, but it's something that I've thought of during the course of the beginning of the season, the first month of the season, and that is you have Travion Henderson, and he's your home run hitter, and he had a home run on Saturday. Are they very cognizant of trying to keep him, healthy for the long run, and should they be? I mean, I know there's a lot of guys involved in that backfield. Mayan Williams. Should they be using Chip Trayanum more? Like, how do you see the carries kind of being divvied up as we get further and further along in the season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm a little surprised that Travion has gotten such an outsized share of the carries, and he had 13 against Notre Dame. I think Chip might have had 5 or 6, and Mayan Williams had 1, and that was kind of it. They didn't run the ball a ton in that game, but that's kind of been the way of it really through every game. Travion is somewhere in the double digits. Chip Trayanum has a handful, and then Mayan Williams has like between 1 to 4, basically, depending on how they want to use him. I think there probably is more opportunity to use Chip, certainly to use Mayan more. We know Dallin Hayden is reliable if they want to put him in the game. They have not really done that yet, but he looked good last year. So it'll be interesting to monitor whether or not they do try to keep Travion's touches down just so he can be healthy at the end of the season, because obviously he's such an explosive player. You want to make sure you have him when you're playing against the toughest teams. And they're at a part of the schedule now where like they're kind of ramping up to Penn State, and then after that they'll ramp up to Michigan. So there's some time in between where I think you can play some different guys if you want to, but it's also hard to do that when Travion is playing the way he's playing. He does look like he looked as a true freshman, and kind of looks back to his best form. So I think he's probably still a double-digit touch per game guy, but I don't know that all those touches necessarily need to be handoffs.
All I can tell you, folks, if you are not subscribed and listening to the podcast, it's at the podcast _OSU. It features not only Bill, but Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham, Doug Maurice. Just great stuff. And the coverage that you get and I get and read about all the time, it's in podcast form, and it's really good stuff. Hey, Bill, we appreciate the time, buddy. Enjoy the off week. And we'll talk to you again next week after Maryland and see where we're at after that. But I appreciate the time as always, pal.
Yep, of course. Talk to you later.
All right, Bill Landis again with Rivals and the podcast. Yeah, Kyle McCord. That's an amazing stat. 10 of 13 on third down. I didn't realize that.
That's big time, Chico.
That's beyond big time. Wow. I mean, you talk about money downs and those throws. Like, yeah, I kind of you forget because that 3rd and 19 to Ibuka at the goal line was the one that we all think about, and then of course the subsequent, train him getting into the end zone. But that 4th and 7 to Julian Fleming, he's right. I mean, like if he does not put that right where he put that, not just as far as fitting into a tight window. I mean, it was, but it was more about like if he doesn't allow him the yak after getting the catch, then this game's over. I mean, it's 4th and 7, and they end up end up getting 6 yards and unable to move the chains, and thus the game is over. So, yeah, Kyle McCord, that was a big boy game. Now, though, you got to keep putting these together. Now you've got Maryland. Now you've got Purdue coming up. Penn State is going to be. That's going to be a really interesting game. And that's where, look, if they're saving this pass rush, and they're not saving it, but if you are banking some of it and you want it, Penn State would be a pretty good game to have that done. Drew Aller and company, but again, can't get ahead of yourselves. You got
that was Penn State was a coming out party for JT Tuimoloau. Like he absolutely asserted his dominance over them.
It was.
It would be great to see a resurgence of that.
It would.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it was of note.
You were very excited.
The pass rush has been a problem. Like my biggest question mark on the defense from the edge. JT and Jack Sawyer should be the 2 best edge rushers in the country right now, and they have like 1 or 2 sacks between them.
Yeah, it's
a little disappointing, and it's great that you have Michael Hall and Tyleik Williams doing so well on the inside, but like you would think that would make for better opportunities for the edge rushers to make more plays. And JT did step up at the end of that game last week against Notre Dame. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he
2
did. He
massive plays on that last Irish drive. But Chico, they're falling so short of what I expected from them this season. I thought they were going to be like wreaking havoc.
Well, that game he had against Penn State is maybe the best all-around defensive performance I've ever. I mean, what was it again? He had like. I know he had a pick 6. I think he had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, right? He had I know he had a couple of. I mean, it was absurd. But you're right. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, you haven't really heard much from these guys. And, maybe they're, going to erupt here in the next few weeks. And certainly when the games get tougher and bigger and, Penn State, whatever. But, yeah, they have been noticeably quiet, we shall say.
Chico, that Penn State game. So JT Tuimoloau, he had 2 sacks, a fumble recovery, a forced fumble, 2 interceptions, including that pick 6. Just all over the place.
If you did that in a month, you'd be like, wow, that was a hell. He did that in one night against Penn State. Still one of the greatest all-around one-man efforts in Ohio State history on that side of the ball. It was incredible. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, pick 6, 2 from the college game, 4 from the NFL slate. Brought to you by our friends at Tipico. But that Notre Dame team that we were just talking about with Ohio State, they've got a big one against Duke. Yeah, the Dukies. Nothing to do with Coach K or Woj or Grant Hill or Leitner. The Dukies on the gridiron. Notre Dame, they've been talking a lot about this week. They have the propensity to come out after a big game and have a letdown. Will they? Well, they're one of the 2 games we're talking about when we come back. Pick 6 is on the way. Final hour of a Friday edition of the Chico Borman Show also is on the way right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show here as we fumble pens, but we were able to recover. Now, what's going to happen on Sunday, at least I think, is that there will be some fumbling going on the part of Lamar Jackson. He gets careless with that football. Carries it like a loaf of bread. You do that against Miles and company, you're going to be in trouble. But, well, that's just a tease for what we have coming up. Chico Borman Show on this Friday. Browns and Ravens coming up this Sunday, 1 o'clock, and then a bye week. Come on, man. But a big one at Cleveland Browns Stadium. We'll talk about that and much more coming up, because right now it's time for Pick Six, brought to you by our friends at Tipico. Boom, we should mention that is actually you on the chalkboard. That's your hand. That's you with the X's and O's.
Filming that was a bitch, Chico.
Filming it and doing it at the same time? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you ended up resorting to the camera on your forehead.
It was quite a hassle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, they wear those flashlights down in caves. That's what you had to do.
A very many takes were attempted.
And you did it all by yourself.
Damn straight.
Yeah, and I shouldn't get on you as much when you oversleep, because a lot of times late into the night, play that intro again if you could. I mean, this is, and it was not easy. That's Bone's hand.
Looks just like it.
Quarterback. Now, are you diagramming the quarterback dropping back? I like that. That was very, very in depth. Quarterback. Arrow back.
Literally just drawing X's and O's.
Yeah. Folks, it's time for Pick Six, brought to you by Tipico. If you need bet credits for football season, yeah, we got them. Big Play Network presented by Tipico Sportsbook. The Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets, of course, like money line spread, point totals, but also lock in player props and check out our Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season. Right now, you can use promo code. Got a couple different ones. Big Play 150 to get $150 bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. You can also use the promo code Chico 150. See, it's not about ego, Boom. I just use a code. But if you could, use Chico 150 and get $150 bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. All right, boom, let's get it started. As always, two from the college gridiron. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We saw them last week against our Ohio State Buckeyes. I thought they played very well. It was expected that they would play pretty well. I don't think I know I didn't expect Ohio State to come in there and just blow their doors off, and they didn't. Sam Hartman was good. I don't think he blows anybody away, but it's a different Notre Dame team. Now, they lose to Ohio State. They lose to Ohio State in dramatic fashion. This is one of those typical games that you say, well, they're going to have a letdown, right? At home, they had it right there in their grasp, and they just simply could not close it out against the Buckeyes, including 10 men on the field for the winning score. And you know what, though? They face Duke. And you say, Duke is Duke. They're on TV more than Leave It to Beaver reruns. You don't know that quote, do you? Do you? Or
I know the show Leave It to Beaver.
You should. So there was a quote. I'm trying to think. It wasn't Jim Calhoun. It was one of the coaches back when the Big East was actually the Big East, and he was on the Jim Rome show, and he was talking about Duke. And of course, everybody back then, unless you went there or you played for him or you were Coach K, you hated him, and the coaches did too. And whoever it was came on Rome show, and he's like, well, Duke is Duke. They're on TV more than Leave It to Beaver reruns.
An East Coaster on our hands.
Yeah, it was an East Coaster.
Was it Syracuse?
No, it wasn't Syracuse. Bowman.
Okay.
I know Jim Boeheim.
Okay.
It wasn't Jim Boeheim. Anyway, Notre Dame 4-1 at Duke. The Dukies are 17th in the country. At home, they are getting. One of these times I'll get it. Duke is they are a home underdog, getting 5.5 points against Notre Dame. This one feels like one of those, oh man, Notre Dame let down. Duke's at home. You're not giving them any respect. The home underdog, 5.5. I think this is a different Notre Dame team. I think Marcus Freeman has these guys focused, ready to go. I know last week was a heartbreak, but give me Notre Dame laying 5.5 on the road after an emotional home loss to Ohio State.
I'm with you, Chico. I think this is a massive bounce-back opportunity for Notre Dame where they probably feel like they have a lot to prove right now. Obviously, coming off that loss, I'm sure they're receiving tons of criticism, not only just over the 10 men on the field on the final play, but just in general. Like it felt like Hartman showed a lot of composure and he made a lot of big throws, but that offense at times also felt very stagnant. They
ran the ball pretty well when they needed.
They started to get it going towards the end, but despite the experience of Hartman, it feels like he's still. He couldn't step up when his team needed it the most. And now maybe tack that up to the dominance of Ohio State's defense. It could be a bit of both, but I think that Hartman is going to come out with that chip on his shoulder, and he is going to respond this week by racking up the digits.
Well, Duke can easily racking up the digits. Is that what you said?
In the passing categories.
Racking up. You sound like fanboy Nick when he's like, "Yeah, I'm okay with Civ in the MLB." What? Aaron Savali. Oh, okay. Civ in the MLB. I'm like, all right, buddy. Anyway, Notre Dame at Duke. I would say I'm going to take Notre Dame. Laying the 5.5, but I will say this: Duke can play the lack of respect card too. I mean, they're undefeated, 17th in the country, and they're a home underdog. And well, woe is I. But I think in the end, this is about Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman. Last year was last year. This year is this year. I don't think they had that letdown game. All right, LSU and Ole Miss. The LSU Tigers, just happy.
Go Tigers.
So happy that me and my family have been so received here until we haven't been because we have not lived up to expectations this year. That is a horrible Brian Kelly impersonation.
Now you need to do the dance he was doing with the recruit.
But it was it was actually a horrible Brian Kelly impersonation. But Brian Kelly then doing a horrible impersonation of a Southerner, like he's from Louisiana. There's still nothing better than that opening.
He picked up that Southern twang in a hurry, Chico.
Me and my family. I don't know if he still talks like that or like when you haven't reached expectation. Anyway, LSU's 3-1 on the year, 13th in the country. Ole Miss going on the road. Ole Miss is also 3-1. The Ole Miss is getting 2.5 points at home. So another home dog. LSU is clearly not as good as we thought to start the year. Remember, we were all high on Jaden Daniels and even
he
Bobby
was in talks for Heisman contention.
Bobby Carpenter, who does the Bobby Carpenter show, he and Schlags wrapping up the Buckeyes each week. He thought they could be a sleeper pick to win the SEC, and I can't say that I went against it. But it is LSU right now defensively awful. Like they're not even like okay, they're bad. I mean they barely. And I know Sam Pittman's done a nice job at Arkansas, but they barely got by Arkansas at home. This one's tough because I feel like they're begging us to take Ole Miss.
What's the spread?
LSU by 2.5.
Ooh.
Yeah, LSU getting 2.5 points, but it's at Ole Miss. I'm going. You know what? I'm going Rebels. I'm going Rebels. Part of it's my heart too because I can't stand Brian Kelly. If like I said, this feels like we want you to bet Ole Miss. at home, and LSU not playing well defensively. But give me Ole Miss. Give me Ole Miss winning outright, not just getting 2.5. Give me Ole Miss winning outright against Brian Kelly and his family.
I wonder if we could just I would probably need to put some pre-production work into it, but if we just had a segment of checking in on Brian Kelly's Southern accent, seeing how Southern it still is. But that's a segment for another day because I've done no prep on such potential segments. And with that, I am going to pick the LSU Tigers. Go Tigers. I think their offense is really started to get it together since week 1, which was like a disastrous week 1 for them. I think they bounced back relatively well, and they still seem shaky to me, and you're right, that defense, a lot of questions surrounding them. But I'm going to take LSU to win this one. With the spread, 2.5.
Okay. All right. So we differ. We split Notre Dame, Duke, and LSU, Ole Miss. Now we go to the NFL slate. Dolphins, Bills is going to be a dandy. Dolphins just hung a 70 burger. That's 7-0. A 70 burger on Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. Miami might be the best team in football. Them, San Francisco, Philadelphia, but now they go to Buffalo, and the Buffalo Bills are favored. They're getting 2.5, laying 2.5 at home against Miami. So Miami's got to make that long trip to Western New York. Oh, man. Have you bought into the Bills yet? I don't know how I feel about the Bills. They're a good team. I feel like they should be better. I also feel like at times like they kind of get dismissed by people that certainly love what Miami's done lately, and for justifiably so. They love Kansas City because Kansas City's proven it. I feel like the Bills, but then I think some of it is the Bills' own doing. You know what? Dolphins get their first loss of the year. Buffalo at home somehow finds a way to slow down Tua and company. And I'm going to go with the Bills laying 2.5 at home.
Chico, I do have to wonder if this is going to be like a back-to-earth game for the Dolphins because, I mean, you come out of the gates so hot in racking up a 70 burger, like you said. I feel like at some point in this season, they're just going to have a slap-in-the-face moment of, like, what's going on, back to reality. But I don't think that's going to be this week, Chico. I'm rolling with the Dolphins, and I agree with you. Like, the Bills have been shaky this year. I have many questions about them. I feel more confident in the Dolphins and their sustained success for this season over the Bills.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the Bills shaky. I think
they're not living up to expectations to this point.
Love how Bohm gives the generic clarifier. They're not living up to expectations at this current time in our world.
Josh Allen does not look elite.
At times he has.
He has his moments, but if you can't string it together consistently, does that make you elite?
Yes, he is. He's still an elite quarterback. Yeah, I'm going. So you got the Dolphins going to 4-0 at Buffalo.
I do indeed.
Interesting. Okay. Steelers are 2-1. They travel. I already know where you're going with this game. They travel to Houston to take on C.J. Stroud and the Texans. The Texans are 1-2, but man, CJ has been really, really getting the job done. And this is not fluky. Like I forget who it was, Dan Orlovsky or one of those guys, they did the deep dive into the film. And, looking at him, his film, and looking at, his anticipatory throws, and is he seeing the entire field, and his presence in the pocket, all of it. Check, check, check. Now, that said, that Steelers defense, led by T.J. Watt and company, they're going to be putting some pressure on him on Sunday. I would love to see the Texans win this game. My heart says Texans. My head says Steelers. The Texans are getting 2.5, another home underdog. Texans are getting 2.5. at home against the Steelers. I think the Steelers win by 10 in this game. So give me Pittsburgh, unfortunately, moving to 3-1 with a win over your boy, C.J. Stroud. All right, boom. Here we go. I know it's coming.
All right, what was that spread you said?
The Texans are getting 2.5, so the Steelers are laying 2.5. They are the favorite.
Okay, yeah. So in this game, I am worried about C.J. Stroud against that Steelers defensive front because they were wreaking havoc against the Browns. I don't think that the Texans have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL either. And so I am worried. I think this might be one of Stroud's toughest performances of the season. But I'm going to take them to cover. I feel like 2.5. I think they could do that. And I think he is going to test that Steelers secondary.
Does he have time to
Yeah.
test that Steelers secondary?
I know. That's something.
Does he
that we're-
want to test Minka Fitzpatrick, Paul?
Oh, he's not afraid of Minka. Come on. Come on now, Chico.
So wait a minute. So you think he's gonna? You're worried about the pass rush, but you think he's gonna have enough time to throw it downfield?
He's going to have to do a lot of improvisation because he's probably going to be running for his life on several occasions.
I think Houston's defense is going to play well against the Steelers.
Yeah.
I think they're going to give Pickett some problems. But
Yeah, I really am not a fan of Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I don't think he's the guy. But I do have a major fantasy situation weighing on me with this one because I'm torn.
Do share.
George Pickens or Tank Dell?
I'd go Pickens all day.
Would
long.
you? Oh man, my team is leaning Dell.
I mean, Dell has been quite the find this year. And this is where Deontay Johnson's still out for the Steelers, so Pickens is going to corral a lot of the targets. Now, obviously, the Texans know that as well, but I don't know how much time CJ's going to have to throw. You can go either way on that. That's a coin flip one. Let me see. Hang on a second. I'm gonna look at the aggregate rankings. For the do you look at these things when you're setting your lineup, Bohm? Like say
I
ESPN?
factor them in, but it's never like the go-to.
Oh no, it shouldn't be the go-to. I'm just saying, do you even check them? Like
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think to me Dell feels like a higher upside player. Like he could have way more explosive numbers because I just don't have a lot of faith in that Steelers offense to consistently move the ball. But at the same time, your exact concern is matched here on this end because I think CJ's going to have a hard time throwing it around the yard quite like he did last week.
So all across the board, they've got and this is like Matt Bowen and Tristan Cockcroft, Eric Carabell, Liz Loza. All across the board, they have George Pickens ahead. 19, 20, 30, 22.6 is the average rank for Pickens this week. And for your boy Tank Dell, it is 35.5.
Ooh, that's a significant difference.
So the rankings say George Pickens, but Bohm, you do what's in your heart because ultimately that's what makes you tick.
I might roll with. We got a YouTube comment and some insight here. Ryan is saying start Tank, and also Houston will cover. So now I face the dilemma here of do I go with the
Ryan
Chico
or,
wisdom,
Ryan or Ron? Oh, always go with Ryan over Ron or over me.
Okay, Tank Dell it is.
All right.
And then you could say you're right when he craps the bed.
And I absolutely will do that.
Yes, you will.
All right, the Patriots are 1-2, but it is Bill Belichick. They're going on the road to take on the Cowboys. I gotta laugh because going into last week, the Cowboys are the best team in football. This is what the Cowboys do. The Cowboys are the best team in football, and then they come in and they lose to Arizona. Now they are at home facing the New England Patriots. Look, Dallas is the better team, but they are laying 6.5. The Cowboys at home, I mean, they're going to be focused. They're going to be pissed off after what happened last week. But Belichick, now, do you think that Belichick is not as focused as he's been throughout his career, Bohm? Obviously making comments about Travis Kelce's personal life.
That was a great comment, by the way.
Yeah, Belichick, I thought Jason Kelce's comment to the comment was even better. He's like, dude, you realize how hard it is to get Bill Belichick to talk even football? Yet he actually weighed in on your personal life and said, yes, that's got to be the greatest catch that Travis Kelce has ever made in Tay-Tay.
Now, did someone specifically ask Bill about that? I feel like that's not something he's just going to go out of his way to mention.
Oh, no. Yeah, somebody asked him, but that's definitely one that in the past he'd be like, I don't want to talk about who. I don't know who that is.
Bah, humbug.
Like he would have pretended like he had never heard of Taylor Swift. Now, he is a music guy. He's a big Bon Jovi fan, which I give him a lot of – I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan. Love Bon Jovi.
Going out in the blaze of glory,
Some
Chico.
of the ballads, Bed of Roses, great song. I like Lay Your Hands on Me. Oh, what was that like? Yeah, big Bon Jovi. But I'm going to I'll tell you what. I like the Cowboys to win, but I like the Cowboys to win by a field goal in this game. Belichick, I think Belichick and company keeps this one close, even with the Cowboys, having all that anger built up. Give me the Patriots getting 6.5 points.
Chico, I'm with you. I think Mac Jones is quietly having one of the better seasons at quarterback. And now, I don't want to get into too much speculation. I don't know how real it is, but there's questions about Mac Jones, not necessarily his performance, but his personality, rubbing some people the wrong way.
Well, he's a little he's sensitive.
Yeah.
He can be tough to work with, just like me. But at the end of the day, does he produce?
Yeah, I expect him to. And Dallas, to me, has been a bit disappointing to start this year. Dak Prescott has not been lighting it up on offense quite like I expected.
Well, they were. Okay. They were disappointing last week. I mean, they were talked about as the best team in football before the Arizona game. Now, I know that's a pretty important game, but it's not like they've been sluggish all year. Remember, they opened up with the 40-point, lopsided beatdown of the Giants. Granted, the Giants aren't very good, but I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are the Cowboys really a great team, and they just really drop the ball against Arizona? Is Arizona better than people are giving them credit for? So you're saying the Cowboys haven't been that great this year?
I think that they might be slumping right now, but they're definitely not. They're definitely not what I expected. The performance that they put forth in Arizona was just, if you're a Cowboys fan, you have to be disgusted.
You're very, very particular about your words. The performance that they put forth. Okay, so
I'm going to take the Pats to cover.
You like the Pats. Yeah, I like the Pats as well, getting 6.5. Cowboys win outright, but I like the Pats to cover. All right, finally, let's do it. Ravens at Browns. The Browns are giving 2.5 points in this game. We're not going to sugarcoat it. I don't. There are whispers, now more whispers about Deshaun Watson in the shoulder. It might be nothing, but we'll probably know. We will know much more tomorrow. Yesterday, couple throws, checking in with the trainer. I didn't think this was any big deal. Like when they term things fatigue, which that happens. Like, wow, you threw all those passes in camp, and, it's kind of like a pitcher. At some point, they do get a dead arm. I don't know if I'm buying it's fatigue as much. Well, I don't know. Hopefully everything's okay with the shoulder, but I have to factor that into this. I'm going Browns. I'm telling you, I think the defense continues to play elite, but I also think the only thing they haven't done, and again, these things are fluky, but they haven't gotten many turnovers. That ends Sunday at home against Baltimore. Lamar Jackson is calm, cool, and collected. Lamar Jackson, a former MVP, he escapes out of a lot of trouble, and he will do that a few times against Cleveland. But he is prone to carrying that football, as I said earlier, like a loaf of bread, getting careless with it. And if you get careless carrying that piece of meat, raw meat, around guys like Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Obo, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Grant Delp, they're gonna knock it loose. So I'm gonna say the turnovers. I'm gonna say 2 fumbles, 1 recovered by the Browns, and an interception for Lamar Jackson. The defense again is the topic of discussion going into a bye week, where they come out of the bye week facing the other great defense in the league, one of the other great defenses in the San Francisco 49ers. But my score will be Browns 19 and the Ravens. I'm going to go 19-13 Browns on Sunday at Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Chico, I think Browns were handed some bulletin board material courtesy of Roquan Smith. And I think that they've shown, even the smallest of details. Cleveland is Cleveland, right? They've shown that they tend to rally around these sorts of things. And I think that we're going to come out, we're going to see an extra fired up Browns team. Now, my biggest concern for Sunday is Deshaun Watson. And whether he's going to be able to hold up, whether that line is going to be able to hold up for him. But at the end of the day, I'm not betting against a fired up Browns team right now. Like, that defense is going to be hitting on all cylinders. Lamar, to me, one thing that I feel like I see with him is he's way too inconsistent with throwing the ball downfield. And there are some days where it feels like he can be hitting frequently, but I'm going to take the Browns, and I don't think that Lamar is going to be able to piece it together enough and get it consistent enough to really challenge that Browns defense frequently enough for them to actually come out victorious. Give me the Browns.
Thank you, Bo. All right, so we're both going with the Browns, laying 2.5. What's your score? I said I'm going Browns 19-13.
I'm going to say, okay, wait, so what was the spread?
2.5.
2.5. I'm going to say 27-17.
Browns are going to put up 27. All right.
Shout out Dustin Hopkins. Big game out of D-Hop.
Okay. I'm sure he appreciates that shout out from you, Boom. That is Pick Six. And again, if you need bet credits for football season, obviously Pick Six brought to you by Tipico, and the Big Play Network is presented by Tipico Sportsbook. Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like money line, spread, point totals, but you can also lock in player props. Those are always fun. Check out our Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season using promo code BIGPLAY150, BIGPLAY150 or Chico150 to get $150 in bet credits on us plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long right here with the Tipico Sportsbook. All right, when we come back, we've got fair or foul, and I do want to get to, in the world of trash talk, like Roquan Smith took it to a whole nother level, which I don't understand. We'll discuss when we come back. Final half hour or so. It's the Chico Borman Show right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. righty, welcome back. It is the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. We'll get to fair or foul here in just a moment. Couple of things I wanted to touch on. First of all, I woke up to remember the Ryder Cup's going on, and it's kind of lost. I think everything in golf has lost its luster a little bit because of, well, a couple of things. One, Tiger pretty much being done, and two, the whole live controversy and, all that stuff. It's just not. I don't think it's as must-see TV for as many people as it used to be. And I'll speak for myself on that too. But the Ryder Cup is always fun, and it is a big deal. Like these guys, I'll never forget one of my favorite books, A Good Walk Spoiled, by John Feinstein, and Davis Love III. And I think they still feel this way about the Ryder Cup. But like Davis Love III, established, obviously major winner, and he's like, every single guy on the first tee shot for the Ryder Cup is just saying, get it in the air, don't whiff, don't, hit a ground. Like the stuff that I say, a lot of us hackers say, they're saying on the first tee of the Ryder Cup. It's that nerve-wracking. Europe swept the foursomes for the first time to start the Ryder Cup. I woke up early this morning, checked my Twitter feed and checked sports headlines, and it was nothing but Europe just stomping the United States. Like, it ain't even close. 4-0 in the Friday morning session for the first time in Ryder Cup history. Complete domination. So, anyway, that's that. And then, real quick before we get to fair or foul, we mentioned Roquan Smith and the trash talk that he and I don't know how it even came up. Not that it matters, because this is not one of those. If you're Roquan Smith, you can go, well, I was taken out of context. He said we're going to go there and beat their asses in front of their wives and children. Why would you bring up the wives and children? I mean, saying you're going to beat their ass is pretty eye-opening, right? You hey, like our chances to come out on top. Okay, even then, wow, okay, Roquan Smith's feeling pretty. We're going to beat their asses in front of their wives and children. What are you doing? Thank you. Thank you, Roquan.
Chico, like Deion Sanders said, they made it personal.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like when Miami, before the 2002 National Championship game against Ohio State, they were sending out Willis McGahee and Andre Johnson and all those guys. They were sending out party invitations to the celebration after. Like they were holding them up at the desk. Look at this. Invitation. Party. National championship party after we win it all. Thank you, Ohio State said. Browns will say thank you to Roquan Smith in not so many words. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. All right, it is time for a Friday edition of Fair or Foul here on the Chico Borman Show. Take it away, Bo.
The lone downside of that Roquan Smith quote for me is just the fact that my favorite part of it is getting underlooked when he was like, what do they call it? The dog pound out there? I'm a dog. I'll be right at home. To me, that was like the highlight, but obviously not the headline.
Well, he went to Georgia.
I know, but still, I thought that was hilarious. That was great. He seems fun. But with that said, let's commence forth on today's Friday edition of Fair or Foul. Chico, I want to ask you, yesterday we talked a little bit. How was my NFL Films impression, by the way? Not awful, right?
It's good.
Yeah?
Send it. That was
That was very Johnny on the spot. I did not plan on doing that. But
terrible. This is awful.
That was terrible. That was terrible, Chico. We were talking yesterday a little bit about the Raiders. Yesterday, Josh Jacobs, running back of the Raiders in Vegas, was asked about Devontae Adams' comments that were certainly alarming if you're a Raiders fan. And Jacobs agreed. He said, it's the way a lot of people feel around here, Chico. Fair or foul, Josh McDaniels has already lost the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, he has, fair. But this has been lost for a while. Like, think of the whole, when it was Mayock and Groot, like, they've never been able to figure it out. Mark Davis has never been able to figure it out. as a front office, and it always starts there. But Josh McDaniels, yeah, I mean, he's beloved around here. I get it. He's had a phenomenal career as an offensive play caller, but he is not a head coach. He is not a leader of men, and he's made that abundantly clear in Denver. He went so far as to take you to the altar in Indianapolis before saying, oops, I had second thoughts. I don't want to do it now. And now he's doing the same crap in Vegas. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. And yeah, this is an absolute train wreck.
Yeah, I think we're just witnessing history repeating itself because this is kind of exactly how it fell apart in Denver with Josh McDaniels. It just feels like, sure, you might know the X's and O's well, but you have no leadership whatsoever in terms of when you're that guy. And it feels to me like in Denver, and I don't know how it's all fallen apart in Vegas, I imagine it's similarly, but in Denver it sounded like he was trying to be too hard to be Bill Belichick when he wasn't. And he didn't have that sort of respect. He didn't command that level of respect, and so he wasn't going to receive anything remotely close to what he hoped for. And yeah, it just seems quite the tumultuous situation brewing in Vegas. But with that said, Chico, we move on because I want to ask you, Deshaun Watson, I just saw today, courtesy of Jake Trotter, Deshaun did not throw again during the open portion of today's
Kevin
practice.
Stefanski openly said he's not sure if he's going to play Sunday. He doesn't know.
Chico, fair or foul, a DTR-led Browns offense has what it takes to take down the Ravens. Is that something that you can get behind? Is it are you going into that matchup with faith?
I mean, I think, put it this way. Yeah, they can. The defense is, and when I talked about turnovers and that now they're gonna happen, and I still think Lamar is prone to putting it on the turf, fumbling the football, and I think against this team he will. But this is where, with DTR, I think he's going to be a very, very good quarterback in this league. But when you're a rookie, a lot of stuff gets exposed. It just, you can't. And his skill set, he played a lot of games at UCLA. Do I think that matters? Whereas maybe the learning curve isn't as steep? Yes, it is. And I think that does play a role. But again, it's the NFL. It's regular season. It's your first start if it happens. And that's a pretty daunting task in division. But, yeah, honestly, I do believe they could still win the game. But it would be, again, we're talking about turnovers and the defense coming up with some against Lamar. I think, DTR would have to keep that to a minimum. I think it changes how Kevin Stefanski calls a game, which he can get conservative, anyway. So I don't know, but this is definitely now becoming a storyline 48 hours before the game, whether or not Deshaun Watson's going to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned an interesting wrinkle in that where if DTR was going to play, I feel like you are going to see a much more conservative Stefanski called game. And to me, it just doesn't feel like, he's not in his element when he has to button it up like that. He's not calling his best game.
Well, that can be a good thing too, though, because that might mean he doesn't get as cute. But yeah, I
sure,
the playbook, obviously,
it
would stand to reason that the playbook is going to shrink a little bit with DTR if in fact he plays over Deshaun Watson because of injury. Okay, we move on.
Yeah, so one thing that I noticed in the past with Stefanski, when he gets out to big leads,
yeah,
he had this tendency to start to blow it because he would just take his foot way too far off the gas.
Yep.
And so, obviously you don't want to see that coming out of the gate in a 0-0 game with a different quarterback, but
right.
Things to watch for. All right, from one quarterback to another. Obviously, we had Thursday Night Football last night, Chico. The Lions getting it done against the Packers. They look like a legitimate contender this year. I thought it was funny how Ryan Fitzpatrick called Jared Goff a poor man's Matt Ryan. And so Goff actually caught wind of that and responded in the post-game interview on NFL Network.
Throughout the rest of the game, hope it's up to your standards.
You played a lot, but
okay.
you played very well, dog.
Okay.
We're very happy.
I didn't know it was a poor man's anything, but
he hears
okay.
that. He's
I
listening.
heard about it. That's all.
Spicy. Call him out there, Dick.
Chico, fair or foul, Jared Goff, poor man's Matt Ryan.
I don't know why you. I think it's the poor man's part that he didn't like.
It is a little condescending.
A comparison to Matt Ryan isn't bad. Matt Ryan had himself a pretty damn good career. But when you say poor man's, yeah, it's just And Ryan Fitzpatrick, we're talking about a Harvard grad. He knows, he's very good with words, or should be. Hats off to Jared Goff. He's I will say this about Jared Goff. I didn't like him initially when he came in, and I thought, here, pretty boy comes in, and he had success at Cal and #1 pick, and he endured a lot, and it wasn't all obviously great in LA, and I think they were trying to push him out for a while. I love the fact that he's flourishing in Detroit. I'm glad to see him doing well.
All right, Chico. Well, last one I have for you today on this edition of Fair or Foul. I don't want to come off like too much of a troll here, but this was the question I drew from it because I found it to be very wholesome content. I want to put that out.
Wholesome.
Yes.
Wholesome.
So
Wholesome.
obviously Colorado versus Colorado State, there was something a little controversial that happened when Travis Hunter took that hit from Henry Blackburn.
Yeah.
So Hunter just yesterday came out with a video of him and Blackburn just hanging out. They go bowling, and they bet like $2,000 the winner of the bowling match would donate to charity of a player's choice. Now, I thought it was great, and I think that it's really cool to see. Like I said, it felt wholesome to me. And Blackburn obviously received a lot of outside threats, a lot of negative comments after his hit on Hunter. So it's nice to see them sort of make amends with one another. But with that said, Chico, it also reminded me of Dan Lanning's quote, head coach of Oregon, when he talked about how Colorado is competing for clicks. It feels like there's so much social media buzz surrounding Colorado, and we always see Dion out in the media giving interviews, quotables, and whatnot. Fair or foul, Chico, this is another instance of competing for clicks.
Foul. Look, I think first and foremost, this is they're about winning football, but I think this is just Dion allows his players to be themselves and to do that. Now, sometimes that can bite you in the ass. Maybe it already has. Maybe it will down the road. But I don't have, I don't have an issue with it. This is one of those where, especially Travis Hunter, because this is a Heisman Trophy candidate. And could they have used him against Oregon? Hell yeah. Could they have used him? It got USC coming up this weekend. And Blackburn took to the point where Dion had to tell fans, lay off the kid. They were giving him death threats, sending him death threats. But, I don't think it's they're playing for clicks. I think it's just, you could say it about everybody in today's world. Everybody's playing for clicks. Dion's not going to get in the way of guys just being themselves. And some people will like that, and some people will hate that.
And I think it's really cool to see that side of these athletes, right? To get to see the more personalized version of some of these guys who maybe a couple years down the road, we're going to see them walking down that stage on NFL Draft Day. I think it's neat to have that insight. I also think it's almost a little hypocritical of Oregon head coach Dan Lanning to say, we're not competing for clicks when you're Oregon, and the fact that you're being backed by Nike and you're rocking all these different uniforms every single week and being super flashy.
What's that have to do with clicks?
I mean, have you seen Oregon's social media? They're always boasting about the different uniforms.
I don't follow their social media.
Okay, so
you can say I think he was saying it in the heat of the moment, trying to rile up his club, and I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know if Oregon is hypocritical. I don't know. I don't follow Oregon's Twitter.
Well, regardless, I appreciate the message. I think it made a statement to his team. Obviously, it resonated with them.
Yeah.
And so I see what he was going for. And that'll do it for today's Fair or Foul.
Okay. Thank you, Boom. That was very well well done. Folks, remember you can catch us on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeart app, search Big Play under Live Radio, and listen. The Matt Fontana Show comes your way 9 a.m. to 11. Chico Borman Show, that would be right here. Me, noon to 2, and boom. All Big Play shows stream replays throughout the day. Also on TV, Bally Sports Great Lakes and Bally Sports Ohio, the Big Play Football Show with Hanford Dixon, The Return with Josh and Maria Cribbs, and the Bobby Carpenter with Anthony Schlegel Show. And, of course, all our shows live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with on-demand shows on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also check out BigPlay.com for our latest merchandise offers and Tipico Big Play Boost. Big Play Network, where you want it, how you want it, when you want it, the new way of enjoying entertainment. That's going to do it for this Friday. Thanks to Bill Landis for joining us. Browns and Ravens coming up this Sunday. Go Brownies. We'll see if Deshaun Watson, something we'll keep our eye on all weekend. He is having some shoulder issues, but Browns, Ravens, Cleveland Browns Stadium, first place on the line. Go Brownies. Make it a great weekend, everybody. See ya.